My name is Richard Cole, 74 years old, retired attorney, and still polite to a fault. That last part, the politeness, has cost me more than any bad investment or courtroom defeat ever could. I lost my wife, Marianne, 4 years ago. She was the only person who ever told me I spoke too softly for a man with sharp thoughts. "You make apologies with your posture," she used to say, tracing the line of my shoulders like she was mapping out my cowardice. I told myself she was wrong, but she wasn't. When she died, I made a quiet promise. Protect Lena, always. It wasn't written anywhere, but I felt it like a contract sealed in blood. My daughter was 32 then, clever, beautiful, and like her mother, too trusting of charm. So when Ethan Pierce came along, all teeth and talk, I tried to stay polite. At first, he had that salesman energy, every sentence a pitch. I met him at a dinner Lena hosted in her small Coral Gables apartment. He arrived late, brought wine he couldn't pronounce, and greeted me like we were old golf buddies. I don't play golf. Never have. Never will. Halfway through dinner, he began dropping numbers. The square footage of his new condo, the car he almost bought, the trips he planned to take. Every story felt rehearsed. Lena laughed at everything he said. That laugh of hers, bright, effortless. I hadn't heard it in years, and I wanted her to keep it. That was my mistake, mistaking her laughter for happiness instead of performance. 2 months later, she told me they were engaged. Already? I asked, pretending my hands weren't trembling over the phone. "We just know, Dad. It's right. The word people use when they're afraid to hear no." Then came the invitation, a thick white envelope with gold trim, addressed in calligraphy too elegant for sincerity. "The Cole Pierce wedding," it said, "at the Ocean Palms Resort, Miami Beach." The date was barely 3 weeks away. The moment I held that card, I felt Marianne's absence like a bruise under the skin. She would have seen through him in a heartbeat. She would have warned Lena in that quiet, terrifying tone that only mothers can manage. Instead, it was me, the polite man, the widowed lawyer, trying to practice restraint while my only daughter married a man who winked at waitresses when she wasn't looking. Still, I went. The resort was obscene. Marble floors polished to a mirror, chandeliers shaped like frozen rain, and an endless loop of soft jazz that sounded like a lie. Guests in designer clothes drifted around like they were auditioning for approval. I watched them from the lobby bar, nursing a club soda, my one rebellion after the doctor banned everything else. That's when I saw Ethan, laughing with a group of men near the glass doors that opened to the pool. His laugh carried like a knife scraping a plate. When he noticed me, he waved, too casually, like a man greeting an employee he planned to fire. Later that night, at the rehearsal dinner, he raised a glass and said, "To my future father-in-law, the man who made this all possible." The crowd chuckled. I didn't. He didn't mean it kindly. You see, I'd already agreed to help with some of the wedding costs. A gesture of support, Lena called it. I thought I was paying for her happiness. Now it was obvious. I was paying for his performance. He winked at me as he drank. That was the moment I felt something shift inside me, the old version of myself cracking like old wood. I'd been polite my whole life, but that night, under the amber lights of that over-decorated restaurant, I realized politeness was a form of surrender. When the dinner ended, I walked outside for air. The pool shimmered under the moonlight. A string quartet inside played something sentimental for no one in particular. That's where Ethan found me. "Everything okay, Richard?" he said, lighting a cigarette like he owned the night. "I'd prefer Mr. Cole," I said. He laughed. "Of course you would. You lawyers and your titles." He took a drag, exhaled toward the water, and said, "You've done well for yourself." The house in Coral Gables, the trust for Lena, Marianne's inheritance must have helped. That last part, Marianne's inheritance, was not public knowledge. I felt my stomach tighten. "How do you know about that?" He shrugged. "People talk. Lena mentioned something about you keeping her too sheltered. Said you were still managing her finances. She's my daughter. I protect her," he repeated, smiling. Funny word. I call it control. I looked at him then, really looked. The tan too perfect, the smile too measured, the ring already glinting on his finger. Not a weighing band, but something heavy and gold, more statement than style. You think you're clever, I told him. But money doesn't make you a man. Integrity does. He smirked. Then I guess I'm already richer than you'll ever be. There are moments in a man's life when his age becomes irrelevant, when the blood in his veins feels 20 again, hot and sure. That was one of them. I stepped closer. You're marrying into a family that knows how to stay quiet. But don't confuse silence for weakness. He flicked his cigarette into the pool. You're threatening me, old man? No, I said. I'm warning you. He chuckled, but his eyes betrayed him, a flicker, quick as lightning, fear, just enough for me to see that beneath the charm, he was a coward. When he walked away, I stayed there, watching the smoke from his cigarette spread across the water like a prophecy. That night, I couldn't sleep. The air conditioner hummed like a mosquito, and the city lights from across the bay blinked in and out through the curtains. I poured myself a glass of water and sat on the edge of the bed. Marianne's picture was on the nightstand, the one from our 35th anniversary, her eyes half closed from laughter. I spoke to it quietly. I'm trying, Mari. I'm trying not to make a scene, but I could almost hear her reply. Maybe a scene is exactly what's needed, Richard. I lay awake until dawn, replaying his smirk, his tone, his audacity. Tomorrow was the wedding. Tomorrow, my daughter would step into a marriage that reeked of arrogance. And tomorrow, I would decide whether politeness was still worth the cost. What would you have done in my place? Would you have stayed quiet for your daughter's sake? Or would you have spoken, even if it ruined everything? Am I wrong to think silence can be a sin? The morning sun hit Miami like a verdict, bright, merciless, and final. I woke early, my shirt already clinging to my back before I'd even left the room. The air smelled of salt, sunscreen, and anxiety. Weddings have their own weather. You can feel it in your bones before anyone says, I do. I dressed slowly, deliberately. The suit I'd chosen was gray, almost silver, the same one I wore at Marianne's funeral. A strange choice, I know, but I wanted to carry her with me. She would have had something sharp to say about this day, about Ethan, about my silence. And maybe, through the weave of that old fabric, she'd help me keep my temper. Downstairs, the resort lobby looked like a showroom for happiness. Staff buzzed around arranging white lilies. Photographers adjusted their lights. And a harpist tuned her strings in the corner, delicate notes trembling like nerves. Guests in pastel dresses drifted toward the ballroom, laughing too loudly. They didn't know they were walking into a tragedy dressed as a celebration. I found Lena near the elevators. She was radiant, not in the way brides in magazines are radiant, but in that fragile, almost desperate way people glow when they're trying too hard to be sure. Her hands shook slightly as she adjusted her veil. When she saw me, her eyes softened. Dad, she said, hugging me, you look wonderful. So, do you, I said, meaning it and not meaning it at once. You ready? She smiled. Ethan's been up since 6. He said today's going to be perfect. I bit back the reply that formed in my throat. Perfect for him, maybe. A young planner interrupted us, clipboard trembling. We need you both for a few photos before the guests are seated. We followed her through the hallway, past a mirrored wall. In the reflection, I caught a glimpse of Ethan adjusting his cufflinks. He was flanked by his groomsmen, all of them too loud, too confident. I watched him whisper something to one of them, who snorted in response. Then Ethan met my eyes in the glass and raised his champagne flute in mock salute. My stomach tightened. The ceremony began on time, because people like Ethan believe punctuality is a form of power. The ballroom had been transformed overnight. Chandeliers dripping crystal, tables like islands of white linen, candles already burning though it was barely noon. A string quartet played something soft enough to make you forget what you were seeing. As Lena walked down the aisle, my heart clenched. She was beautiful, truly, and for a fleeting second, I wanted to believe it would be fine, that my doubts were just the echoes of old grief. But then Ethan's grin spread, too wide, too practiced, and I saw him for what he was, a man performing sincerity, a con artist in a tuxedo. The officiant's words blurred. In sickness and in health, echoed like a courtroom oath I'd heard 1,000 times before, binding, irreversible. My throat went dry. I waited for that moment when the universe gives you a sign, the interruption that saves a soul from itself. None came. When it was time to speak, Lena's voice trembled with emotion. She thanked me, said I'd taught her what true love looked like. My heart broke and swelled all at once. Then Ethan took her hands and said his vows, every line suspiciously polished, like he'd copied them from an article titled, "How to Sound Genuine at Your Wedding." The guests sighed. Phones rose like metallic lilies to capture the performance. And then, the reception. If heaven had a credit limit, this was it. Champagne towers, sushi bars, a jazz trio flown in from New Orleans. Everything screamed money. Mine. Most of it. I tried to stay near the periphery, at a table by the windows overlooking the ocean. The light was blinding. I watched my daughter dance with friends, her laughter growing freer as the champagne flowed. For a moment, I almost let myself enjoy it. Almost. Then I saw Ethan, already drunk, his tie loose, telling a story to a group of guests who were pretending to listen. He caught me looking and raised his glass again, smirking. The band switched songs. People cheered. The photographer shouted for attention. Let's get the bride and groom near the cake. The cake was ridiculous. 5 tiers, white fondant, gold dust, little sugar orchids. A monument to vanity. I saw Lena hesitate before approaching it. Maybe she felt the same unease that I did. Ethan wrapped his arm around her shoulders. Too tight. Smile, he whispered, loud enough for me to hear. Everyone's watching. They posed. Cameras flashed. And then, he did it. He shoved her. Not hard enough to injure, but just enough for her to lose balance and fall into the cake. Gasps echoed through the room like a wave. The music stopped mid-note. Frosting splattered across her dress, her face, the floor. Lena froze, mouth open, eyes wide. The laughter came a second later, not from her, but from him. Relax, baby, Ethan said, loud and bright. It's just a joke, a joke. The crowd hesitated between horror and disbelief. Some guests laughed nervously. Others turned away. Phones rose again, lenses hungry. Then a voice, young, incredulous, rang out from the corner. Oh my God, he did it. It was Tyler, Ethan's best man, phone in hand. What Ethan didn't know, what none of us knew until that instant, was that Tyler's phone was live, streaming, to hundreds, maybe thousands. Every humiliation broadcast, every flinch immortalized. Ethan's smile faltered as he realized. He reached for the phone, but Tyler stepped back, grinning. You're trending already, man, he said, half drunk, half terrified. Miami Cake Gate. The room exploded, laughter, murmurs, cameras flashing like gunfire. Ethan's charm cracked open, and what spilled out wasn't regret. It was rage. He turned toward me, eyes burning. You think this is funny, old man? I stood. I think it's fitting. He stepped closer, frosting still on his shoes. You set this up, didn't you? I didn't move. No, I said. But maybe the world finally saw you the way I do. Lena stood up slowly behind him, cake sliding off her dress in pale sheets. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just looked at him. That look only women who've reached the end can give, and said, clearly, Dad, I'm not marrying this man. The silence after that sentence was the purest sound I've ever heard. Then, a single clap. Someone near the bar. Another joined, and another. Applause spread like contagion until the entire ballroom roared with it. Guests cheering, cameras flashing, voices rising in relief or entertainment. I couldn't tell which. Ethan froze, stunned. The hotel manager appeared, firm hand on his shoulder. Sir, I think it's best you leave. Ethan's face twisted, half snarl, half plea. Lena, come on. You're making a mistake. She didn't look back. He tried to speak again, but his voice drowned beneath the sound of 100 hands clapping. He was led toward the exit, muttering threats no one took seriously. The door shut behind him with the softest, sweetest click. For the first time all day, I breathed freely. Lena turned to me, eyes wet but steady. Dad, she whispered, I'm so sorry. I shook my head. You have nothing to apologize for. She laughed then, shaky, exhausted, but real. I can't believe I almost married him. People like him don't marry, I said quietly. They acquire. Outside, the sun was already starting to dip over the ocean. The glass walls caught the light, scattering it across the room like gold dust. false, fleeting. I watched it fade. For 74 years, I'd believed that dignity meant restraint, that the noble thing was to keep calm while others lost control. But that day, watching my daughter reclaim herself, I understood something new. Sometimes dignity means letting the truth make a spectacle of itself. Sometimes silence is just cowardice wearing manners. That evening, as the guests began to leave, I stepped out onto the terrace. The sea smelled of champagne and salt. I thought of Marianne again, her voice, her laughter, the way she could see through people like glass. I wish she could have seen this. Her daughter, standing tall amid the wreckage of a false paradise. Ethan would be gone by morning, but the lesson, that was ours to tell me. What would you have done? Would you have stopped the wedding before it began, or waited, like I did, for the truth to reveal itself? Was I protecting her, or just protecting my conscience? The morning after the wedding that wasn't, Miami looked hungover. The sea had that dull gray shimmer that comes after too much light, too much noise. I sat on the balcony of my hotel room, coffee going cold in my hand, watching gulls fight over scraps near the shore. From down below came the faint sound of staff dismantling the remains of the reception. Scraping, clinking, the sigh of brooms against marble. The ballroom had been a battlefield. Now it was just another rented space, ready for someone else's illusion. Lena was asleep in the next room. She hadn't said much after the guests left last night. I'd stayed by her side while she scrubbed frosting from her hair, her hands shaking in the sink. We didn't talk about him. We didn't have to. Sometimes silence isn't cowardice. Sometimes it's exhaustion. At around midnight, her phone began buzzing nonstop. Messages, alerts, calls. She'd turned it face down, but the glow wouldn't die. When she finally checked it, she went pale. "Dad," she whispered. "It's everywhere." It was true. By morning, Miami Cakegate had gone viral. Clips of Ethan shoving her, the gasp, the cake, the silence, her words, "I'm not marrying this man," all stitched together into 100 different edits. TikTok had it with dramatic music. Twitter had it with sarcasm. News outlets were calling it the most poetic wedding disaster of the year. Even late-night hosts were making jokes about it. Lena's face was everywhere, brave, beautiful, defiant. Mine, in the background, half-shadowed, was captioned as "the stoic father." Funny thing, fame, it doesn't ask permission. It just happens to you. When she woke up, she didn't reach for her phone. She just sat there on the edge of the bed, eyes swollen, voice low. "I can't go outside, can I?" "You can," I said. "You just might not want to." She nodded. I didn't even cry. "That's strength," I said. "No," she whispered. "That's shock." I didn't argue. She was right. By noon, the hotel lobby was a minefield of whispers. Guests who hadn't checked out, yet looked at us as we passed. Some with sympathy, some with curiosity, a few with barely disguised glee. Scandal has its own scent, and we carried it like perfume. Outside, cameras waited by the entrance. Paparazzi, God help us. A concierge whispered, "Mr. Cole, if you prefer, there's a side exit." "No," I said. "We'll walk through the front." Lena hesitated. "Dad, they already took your dignity once," I told her quietly. "Let's not give them the rest." So we walked out together into the glare of the cameras, the click, click, click of curiosity masquerading as journalism. Someone shouted, "Lena, how does it feel to go viral?" Another yelled, "Is your father pressing charges?" She didn't flinch. I placed a hand at her back, steadying her, and we moved past them like ghosts through fog. When the car doors shut, she finally exhaled. "I hate them," she said. "All of them. I used to hate reporters too," I said. Then I realized they're just mirrors. They don't create ugliness. They reflect it. She turned her face toward the window. "What about Ethan? What happens to him now?" I didn't answer right away. I had checked, of course. Old habits. Sometime around dawn, I'd made a few discreet calls. Contacts from my legal days. People who still owed me favors. Ethan Pierce had already lost his job. The company he worked for, some boutique investment firm, had decided he was a reputational risk. His social media accounts were gone. His phone number disconnected. The golden boy had gone dark overnight. I told Lena only part of it. "He's gone quiet," I said. He won't trouble you, she nodded, eyes still on the window. Then it's over. I wanted to agree, but part of me knew better. Humiliation that public breeds revenge, and men like Ethan don't fade gracefully. They plot. That evening, we returned to my house in Coral Gables, a quiet, tree-shaded street Marianne had loved for its stillness. The house smelled faintly of cedar and old books. When we stepped inside, Lena let out a small sound, half relief, half grief. "Home," she said. Finally, I made tea, because that's what men my age do when we don't know how to fix anything. She wandered through the living room, stopping at photographs on the mantel. Her as a child with Marianne at the beach, the three of us at her law school graduation. Then, one of her mother and me on our wedding day, both of us too young to know that love ages like everything else. Mom would have hated him, Lena said softly. She would have stopped him before I ever saw him, I replied. We drank in silence. The house creaked, settling around us like an old friend who's seen too much. When she finally went to bed, I sat alone in the living room, the TV flickering with news coverage. There we were, again and again. The same footage, the same headlines. Father stays silent as daughter confronts groom. They made it sound heroic. I knew better. It wasn't heroism. It was endurance. At around midnight, a message appeared on my phone. Unknown number. Ethan Pierce. Enjoying your 15 minutes? I stared at the screen for a long time. Then another message followed. You think this is over? I'll make sure she pays. My hand trembled. For a brief second, I saw not the brash young man from the wedding, but something uglier, the kind of man who mistakes shame for injustice. I deleted the messages. I didn't tell Lena. She needed sleep, not ghosts. Still, I printed the screenshots, just in case. Lawyers never fully retire. We just switch from courtrooms to memories. The next morning, she woke early, already dressed, hair pulled back, eyes sharp. Dad, I've been thinking, she said. I can't hide forever. I need to face it. Face what? The story. The interviews. People are calling me brave, but they don't even know me. I want to set the record straight. She opened her laptop, scrolling through the emails, requests from talk shows, podcasts, magazines, all wanting a piece of her composure. Lena, I said, carefully, don't let them turn you into content. She smiled faintly. That sounds like something Mom would say. She'd mean it too. She hesitated, then said, would you come with me? To the interview? I nodded. Of course I would. 3 days later, we sat in a sterile TV studio, surrounded by cables and ring lights. The host, a woman with 2 white teeth, introduced Lena as the bride who said no. They laughed. They applauded. Lena told the story, calmly, truthfully. She didn't cry. She didn't attack him. She simply said, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. The audience clapped. I watched from offstage, a strange mix of pride and sorrow tightening my chest. Afterward, as we left, the host whispered to me, you must be very proud. I am, I said. I just wish it hadn't cost her so much. That night, back home, I found a small box waiting at the front door. No name, no return address. I opened it carefully. Inside, wrapped in tissue, was a single slice of cake, dried, hard, with a note that read, sweet enough for you, old man? My first instinct was anger. My second was fear. But my third, and perhaps truest, was understanding. Ethan was unraveling. That was his mistake. And my opportunity. I placed the note in a drawer, next to the printed messages. Evidence, if ever needed. The lawyer in me stirred awake, old and patient. For the first time since Marianne died, I felt purpose bloom again. Quiet, deliberate, dangerous. Revenge doesn't always announce itself with fire. Sometimes it begins as paperwork. The next morning, over breakfast, Lena smiled for the first time since the wedding. You know, she said, it's funny. I feel free. Freedom often begins with loss, I said. She reached for my hand. Thank you, Dad. For what? She didn't specify. I didn't ask. Some gratitude is too fragile to name. That night, as the house settled into silence, I sat alone again with my tea, watching the city lights blink beyond the palms. I thought about Ethan, where he might be, what bitterness he was nursing. I knew he wouldn't disappear quietly. People like him never do. But for now, I let the peace settle. My daughter was safe. The truth was public. The world had turned, for once, in our favor. Still, something in me whispered that the story wasn't finished. Would you have ignored his messages or called the police? Would you have let him fade into obscurity or waited, as I do, for the next move? Am I protecting my daughter or preparing for war? I woke to thunder rolling over Coral Gables like a drawer slamming shut. The rain came in hard sheets, thick as bead curtains, and the house did that old Florida thing, exhaling coolness from the tile floors, smelling of damp cedar and memories. I made coffee, left it black. At my age, you stop bargaining with your habits and simply live alongside them like old neighbors you wave to, but never invite in. The wedding that wasn't sat behind us like a toppled billboard, still visible from every angle. Lena was asleep in the back guest room, the one with Marianne's sewing table and the window that collects lizards. When the first clap of thunder rattled the panes, she moved but didn't wake. Good. Let her sleep through at least one storm in this house. The doorbell rang at 7:10 a.m. The sound cut through the rain with the exact energy of bad news. I opened the door to find a bellman from the Ocean Palms Resort standing under a plastic poncho, holding a thick, rain-spotted envelope that looked too official for courtesy and too rude for debt. "Mr. Cole?" he asked. His voice was apologetic in that way service people master when they've been sent to do someone else's cruelty. From the hotel finance office. They tried calling. I took the envelope. It was heavy with paper, always a sign of trouble where I come from. "Thank you," I said, and meant it. He looked relieved to be thanked at anything. When he left, I stood at the kitchen island and slit the envelope with the paring knife I use for citrus. Rain drummed the roof. Inside, invoices. Catering, floral, string quartet, open bar, a second open bar for after hours. The suite upgrade. The last-second ice sculpture I'd never seen because it had been placed by the dance floor and then promptly witnessed a small public execution. The total due was a number that would have made a healthier man sweat. Along with the invoices was a letter on serious paper. Due to the collapse of the event and the actions of one Mr. Ethan Pierce, the hotel had elected to hold me, the family patron, responsible for balances that had migrated, like guilt, from promises to money. It ended with a polite request to confirm which card they should charge. When I finished reading, I set the letter down and laughed, lightly at first, then with that deeper laugh I used to use in court when opposing counsel had tried something clever and small. On the last page was the contract signature line, not mine. Asterisk, asterisk, his dot, asterisk, asterisk, Ethan Pierce, the man who pays with other people's pride. He must have given them my card, not to pay, but to threaten. The resort was betting I would cover the mess to keep the story soft. They didn't know me, not yet. I made a second coffee and dialed the hotel finance number. A woman with a careful voice answered and deployed her script. I deployed mine. "Ma'am," I said, 3 facts. 1. I did not sign a single vendor contract. 2. The signatory you're seeking has publicly humiliated my daughter at your property and then vanished. 3. If any charge is attempted on my card, I will file a formal dispute that includes your security footage, the viral videos, and a list of the vendors who, per your own writer, agreed to joint liability with the groom. I'm a retired attorney. I have nothing but time. She was silent for the space of a swallow. Then, "Mr. Cole, perhaps we could review the file again." "We will," I said, "and you will find Ethan Pierce's name where mine is not. May I suggest you begin there?" We ended civilly. We always do. But I hung up feeling the old instrument in me had been tuned. Anger, in my hands, turns into paperwork. It's a gift. Or a curse. What do you think? I took the letter to the dining table, the one that still had faint heat marks from Marianne's Thanksgiving casseroles, and opened the drawer where I keep what matters. The asterisk, asterisk blue ledger, asterisk, asterisk with her initials in gold. A spare safety deposit key in a taped envelope. A photograph of Lena at 7 wearing a foam crown. I placed the hotel letter under the ledger and left it there to be leashed by history. The ledger is my anchor. Its pages hold account numbers and birthdays and the handwriting of a woman who believed in order the way some people believe in angels. I was still there when Lena patted him wearing one of Marianne's old sweaters, sleeves pushed up to her forearms like she was ready to work the day into submission. "Morning," she said. Her voice had that scraped quality grief gives you, a throat polished by tears you're too proud to spend. "There's coffee," I said, "and a storm we don't have to drive through." She poured a mug and leaned against the counter. "What did the doorbell bring?" "The resort," I said. "A bouquet of invoices." She set the mug down too carefully. "He stuck you with it." "He tried." I nodded at the ledger. He signed. "That signature is going to learn what liability feels like." Something loosened in her shoulders. "Dad, I don't want you fighting my fights for me." "That's your mother's sweater," I said. "It fits you." She glanced down. "I know. I'm not fighting your fight," I said, to the sweater and to her. "I'm fighting mine." Her phone buzzed. She looked, then looked away. "Tyler again." "The best man," I said. "The one with the live stream and a conscience he drinks to quiet. He says he wants to meet. Says he's sorry. Says he can help." "Help how?" She shrugged. "There's a group chat, boys' night. And plans. Plans." I let the words sit there and gather weight. "Tell him 30 minutes, I said. At Gomez Diner in Brickell, the back booth. Ask him to bring his battery pack." Men like that always arrive with a dying phone and an appetite for forgiveness. Her eyes searched my face. "Are you sure?" "You barely slept." "I slept enough," she texted. Thunder approved. Gomez Diner has the kind of fluorescent lights that make secrets look cheap. The waitress calls everyone Mi Amor and brings Cuban toast thick with butter as if it can solve the human condition. Tyler arrived late, wet, breathless, wearing a linen shirt that had given up the fight against the storm. He found us in the back booth and tried for a grin. It failed. "Mr. Cole," he said. "Lena." He slid in opposite us and looked everywhere but our eyes. When the toast arrived, he didn't touch it. "I'm not here to make you feel better," I told him. "I'm here to hear the truth." He nodded too quickly. Yeah, of course." He took out his phone and set it on the table face up, like an offering. Cracks spiderwebbed the screen. "Ethan planned it. He started the cake push. He thought it would be hilarious. Said, 'Watch it blow up. We'll be famous before the honeymoon.' He was trying to get sponsored by a prank channel. He said brands love chaos." "Did you tell him not to?" Lena asked. Her tone was flat, not accusatory. "That's worse for a liar." Tyler's jaw worked. I said it was dumb." He said I was being soft. Then he sent this. He opened the chat and scrolled. Look, there it was. A thread named asterisk, boys' night asterisk, avatars of men with big watches, the chummy rod and a certain kind of male friendship. Screenshots I could sink my teeth into. Asterisk, Ethan asterisk, writing. Asterisk, timer set. Cut the music right after I do it. Make it look like an accident first. Then we laugh and it's fine. She laughed too. Trust. Asterisk a follow-up. Asterisk, worst case, her old man pays to smooth it over. He's loaded. She said he's got mom's inheritance tucked in a trust he controls. We'll get access once we're married. I'll pay you guys back. Asterisk, Lena went very still. He wrote that? Tyler nodded and kept scrolling. Another message. Asterisk, if she freaks, we spin it. Cans level performance. L+E forever, etc. Asterisk, I felt the old heat rise to my ears. The text didn't only admit a plan. It exposed the motive. Asterisk, my trust for Lena. Asterisk, my caution turned into his opportunity. There are crimes and there are betrayals. Sometimes they overlap like storm clouds and the sea. Why are you showing us this? I asked, keeping my voice steady. Tyler swallowed, because he's been blaming me online, saying I set him up, that I went live to ruin him. He told his friends I did it for clout. He left me 12 voicemails I won't play for Lena's sake. I want to be done with him. I want to sleep without waiting for a brick through my window. What do you want in return? I asked. No judgment. Just the old habit of the deal. Nothing, he said too fast. Then, softer. Maybe a letter, if it comes to court, saying I cooperated. I'll sign whatever. I'm not a good person, but I'm not what he is. He handed me the phone. AirDrop. Take it all. I did. My phone, an old model in a leather case that still smells like Marianne's purse, filled with proof. I watched the progress bar climb like a slow sun. I watched the progress bar sin sun. The waitress came with more coffee. Tyler finally ate the toast, as if chewing might absolve him. When he left, he shook my hand with both of his, overcompensating the way the guilty do. The bell above the door jingled. Rain hissed. Back in the booth, Lena stared at the remaining slice of toast. I kept thinking I was stupid, she said, all morning. Then I read that, and I think maybe I was just targeted. You were loved, I said. That's what made you visible. Isn't that what makes us visible to predators too? She asked. Her voice had none of the self-pity people mistake for honesty. It was just a question. I had no satisfactory answer. At home, I opened the blue ledger and turned to the tab titled ****, Trusts and Safeguards, ****. Marianne and I had written our plan like a couple who'd watched enough bad weather to build with hurricane straps. ***, Lena's trust ***, pays out in stages, tied to her choices, not her romances. As trustee, I held discretionary powers to withhold disbursements in the presence of extraordinary circumstances, which, I wrote in my loyally paranoia, included coercion, duress, fraud, or predatory marriage. I traced the clause with my fingertip. Marianne had teased me when I drafted it. You're legislating heartbreak, she'd said, amused. Who are you trying to outwit? Fate? Every man who will ever try to charm our girl into funding his dreams, I'd replied. We were half joking then. Fate has a taste for jokes it can later make cruel. I pulled the safety deposit key from its paper wrap and held it against the ledger's spine like I was paring living bones. Then I called Marta Alvarez an old colleague who'd become a judge and then retired early to care for a sister with Parkinson's. Marta retains the precision of a scalpel and the patience of a rosary. Marta, I said when she answered, I have a situation that wants sunlight. Richard, she said, warm and careful. I saw the clips. Your girl's spine is steel. What do you need? 2 things, I said. First, your recommendation for a process server who doesn't flinch. Second, a quiet read on whether I can file a petition to preemptively enjoin a former fiancé from contacting my daughter based on threatening messages and evidence of planned humiliation for pecuniary gain. You want a restraining order wrapped in a financial prophylactic, she said. I had just the language. And the server, called Diego. He serves papers like origami, neat, surprising, and impossible to undo. I told her about the hotel invoices, the group chat, the slice of cake at my door. She listened like a judge, then like a friend. Bring me copies, she said. I'll mark them up and send you to the clerk with the ribbon on top. Thank you, I said. The gratitude was bigger than the request. Before we hung up, she said in that affectionate way she pretends isn't affectionate. You always did your best work when you were angry at the right person. I'm angry at a system that makes a spectacle of women to pay the bills, I said. He's just the face it wears today. Then do what you do, she replied, gently. By late afternoon, the storm had rinsed the streets and left the neighborhood smelling of wet ficus and car soap. Lena stood on the porch with a towel around her shoulders, watching children ride bikes through shallow lakes on the asphalt. Their laughter rose like forgiven dead. For a moment, I let the world be soft. Then my phone chimed. An unknown email. ***, Pierce Holdings LLC. Demand for retractment, sick, and damages. ***. The misspelling told me everything. The attached letter was theater. Grand words, bad grammar, a threat dressed as a suit. It accused Lena of defamation, me of elder manipulation, Tyler of editing content to slander. It demanded 6 figures and a public apology to restore Mr. Pierce's brand. I smiled. Small, the kind of smile that means the game has rules after all. Dad? Lena asked. Ethan, I said. Or the notion of him wearing a paralegal's hat. She took the phone, skimmed, snorted. He spelled retraction wrong. Men like him always do, in law and in life. I forwarded the letter to Marta with the subject line. ***, popcorn. ***. Then I sent a short reply to the Pierce email from a domain I keep for unpleasant business. Asterisk, asterisk, Marianne and Cole L. LP, inactive. Asterisk, asterisk. My message was clinical and cold. Asterisk, we decline your theatrical demands. Please preserve all communications and devices for discovery. Service of process to follow. Asterisk, I signed it with my full name. Sometimes revenge is nothing more than a signature that weighs what it should. An hour later, Diego texted. Asterisk, asterisk, got the packet. Where's our leading man? Asterisk, asterisk, I gave him Ethan's last known address. A rented condo near Bayshore with glass walls that beg storms to judge them. And Tyler's tip that he'd likely be at asterisk, asterisk, lock asterisk, asterisk. A brunch spot in Midtown with a DJ and the kind of eggs that taste like they were produced by influencers. Diego replied with a thumbs up and a skull emoji, which I took as a professional commitment to closure. I printed everything: the group chat, the hotel contract, the threatening texts, the cake in a box. I placed the stack on the dining table and set the safety deposit key on top, like punctuation. Then I called the bank and arranged a quiet visit in the morning. The asterisk, asterisk contingency letter. Asterisk, asterisk. Marianne and I wrote after her diagnosis, the one that instructs the bank to release a small, controlled fund to Lena if I determine she's under emotional siege. Waits in that box. I had never thought I'd use it. Perhaps I was wrong. At dusk, we ate simple: grilled cheese, tomato soup, the kind of food that forgives any appetite. Lena ate half and pushed the plate away. He's not done, she said. He is when he's tired, I replied. Our job is to outlast his stamina. She looked at me the way daughters sometimes look at fathers when they remember we were men before we were parents. What are you going to do? I'm going to make certain the story that goes on public record is the truest version of what happened, I said, and I'm going to send a sheriff to deliver it. She smiled for the first time that day. Mom used to say you could break a man in half with a comma. She overstated my punctuation, I said, but I appreciate the myth. We were rinsing dishes when my phone buzzed again. Diego, asterisk, asterisk served, asterisk, asterisk. Then a photo. Ethan on Lark's sunstruck patio, mouth open mid-complaint, a folded packet in his hand. Behind him, someone had captured the moment on their phone, of course, and I could almost hear the caption. Asterisk, cake groom gets served at brunch. Asterisk, I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt the familiar mixture: pity for a man doing harm with the only tools he knows, and relief for a daughter stepping out from under the weight of a false promise. The house listened as we stood there. 2 people, 1 storm past, another building. I returned the safety deposit key to its envelope, slid the blue ledger back into the drawer, and closed it softly. Justice had begun. Not the loud kind. The kind that walks, not runs. I want to tell you I slept well. I didn't. At 2 a.m., the phone lit up again. A voicemail, no words. Just the sound of breathing and the distant thump of bass from some club where men like Ethan go to collect the courage they can't grow. I saved it. Evidence has no dignity, but it has uses. On the way back to bed, I paused at Marianne's photo on the hall table. Our wedding day, her veil turning to light. We wrote the rules, I told her. We're following them. Her smile did the thing it does in my head. Changed shape, as if it knew I was lying to myself. Rules are a comfort. Revenge is a confession. The truth is, I wanted him to hurt a little. Not because of the cake or the letters, or even the trust. Because he looked at my daughter like she was a set piece, and at me like I was already a ghost. Maybe I'm a ghost now, but one that moves chairs and opens windows and insists the living remember their furniture isn't nailed down. So here we are. Papers served, a plan unfolding, a key cooling in a drawer. Tomorrow, the bank, the petition, the clerk's indifferent stamp that starts the slow, beautiful engine of consequence. Tell me, what would you have done with the blue ledger and the storm? Would you set the law in motion, or call him and ask for an apology no letter can wring out? Would you forgive a man who only repents when the bill arrives? Am I wrong to want mercy to come after the reckoning, not before? Morning came blue and sharp, the kind of Florida morning that feels almost artificial, the light too clean, the air too perfumed with gardenia. I dressed as if for court. Navy jacket, soft white shirt, the tie Marianne had bought me the year Lena graduated. The knot felt heavy at my throat, but purpose often does. Lena watched from the kitchen island as I filled a folder with documents. "You look like you're going to war," she said. "I'm going to the clerk's office," I answered. "Same thing, only better coffee." She smiled, faint but real. "Do you want me to come?" "No. Someone should stay here and answer calls. And feed the cat if he ever decides to forgive us for the thunder." She nodded. I saw the relief behind her smile. She was brave, but bravery has limits. The drive downtown was slow, a river of commuters who looked half asleep, half condemned. I parked in the shade of the courthouse, still remembering the years when I used to walk these halls with confidence instead of nostalgia. The marble floors had been polished smoother than my patience. Security waved me through after recognizing the old bar card in my wallet. At the clerk's counter, I met a woman named Imani, young and precise, the kind who takes pride in paper that behaves. She read the petition once, then again, and finally said, "You really drafted this yourself?" "Old habits," I said. She smiled. "It's cleaner than half of what I see from firms downtown. You want me to fast-track it?" "Please." She stamped, initialed, scanned. The sound of each mechanical click felt like punctuation to a prayer I hadn't known I was saying. When she handed me the receipt, she said quietly, "For what it's worth, Mr. Cole." I saw the video. "Your daughter's tougher than any restraining order. She gets that from her mother," I told her. Then, after a pause, "But the paper helps." Outside, the heat had gathered. I loosened my tie, bought an orange juice from a food truck, and sat on a bench across from the courthouse steps. I thought of Marianne again, how she'd come to watch my early cases, always sitting in the second row because she said the first was for egos. "Justice should be observed, not inhaled," she'd whisper. I finished the juice, folded the cup, and went to the bank. The manager recognized me at once. "Mr. Cole, the usual box?" "The usual box." In the private room, under the buzz of a single fluorescent tube, I lifted the lid on our safe deposit drawer. Inside lay the envelope Marianne had labeled in her looping, defiant script for storms. I slid out the contents, one letter, one cashier's check, and a tiny USB drive wrapped in tissue paper. The letter was addressed to me. I unfolded it with the caution of a man unwrapping his own heart. "Richard, if you're reading this, it means the calm didn't hold. I know you, love. You'll want to fix things. Remember, our daughter is not porcelain. Let her break and glue herself if she must. Use the funds only when you're sure the fight serves her future, not your pride. And if the man who wronged her ever faces you, speak softly. It will frighten him more." I sat there a long while, her handwriting trembling slightly in my hands. Pride. That was her word for the shadow following me through this entire affair. I slid the check back into its sleeve, $75,000, earmarked for extraordinary circumstances. That would cover counsel fees, security, and perhaps, if I were clever, one final kindness disguised as revenge. The USB I pocketed. I didn't know yet what was on it, but Marianne had been deliberate with her mysteries. Back home, the air smelled of coffee and printer ink. Lena sat at the dining table, her laptop open to a half-written statement. "PR firm wants me to post something," she said, clarifying that I don't condone online bullying. "People are hunting him now. Let them," I said. "I don't want blood," she replied. "Neither do I, but truth draws its own crowd." She hesitated. "If you were me, would you apologize?" "No," I said. "But you're not me." She looked relieved and a little sad. "What happens next?" "Next," I said, "we wait for the storm to change direction." It changed sooner than expected. At 4:30, the doorbell rang. Not the polite double tap of delivery, but the long, insistent press of someone who believes persistence equals importance. When I opened it, a woman stood there in a rain-spotted navy blazer, holding a slim recorder and a notebook. "Mr. Cole? I'm Sandra Velasquez, Miami Observer. Could I have a minute?" "Only one," I said. She smiled, quick and professional. "We're running a feature on digital humiliation, accountability, privacy, the way one viral moment can redefine lives." I wanted your take. You already have it, I said. It's called silence. But she didn't leave. Off the record, Mr. Cole, I think there's more to this story. We received an email from someone claiming to be Ethan's lawyer, accusing you of orchestrating a smear campaign, manipulating footage. They're calling it defamation by editing. I felt my jaw tighten. And you believe that? I believe in documents, she said. Do you have any? I led her to the dining table. The blue ledger was there, neat as always. I showed her only what I chose. The hotel contract with Ethan's signature, the group chat printouts, a copy of the threatening letter. She read carefully. So you're building a case? I'm building a record, I said. The case builds itself. When she left, she said something that lingered. People assume revenge looks loud, but the loudest thing you've done is stay calm. That unnerves them. I closed the door, locked it twice. That evening, Lena and I watched the news. A segment flashed across the screen. Cakegate groom serviced with lawsuit. Denies wrongdoing. They'd misspelled served, but the footage was unmistakable. Ethan, leaving the brunch restaurant, waving papers like a flag of surrender he didn't understand. He looked smaller now. Fame shrinks the unworthy. Lena exhaled slowly. Is it wrong that I'm glad? No, I said. It's human. She turned toward me. What if he fights back? He will, I said, but not well. Later, when the house was quiet, I opened the USB. Inside was a single video file titled Lena_1996.mov. I clicked. The screen filled with our living room, 29 years younger. Marianne holding the camera, laughing. Lena, maybe 7, dancing in a princess dress, singing some nonsense song about bravery. I appeared at the edge of the frame, briefcase in hand, pretending to be a villain she must defeat. Daddy's the bad guy, she shouted, swinging a plastic sword. Marianne's voice behind the lens. Only today, sweet girl, only today. I watched until the tape fuzzed to static. The message was clear enough. Even pretend villains need endings. 2 days later, Marta called. Preliminary hearings set for next week. Judge assigned. Hollander. You remember him? Too fondly, I said. He likes concise arguments and clean shoes. You'll be fine. By the way, your friend Mr. Pierce filed a counterclaim for emotional distress. Did he spell it correctly? Miraculously, yes. Then he's improving, I said, and we both laughed. The tired kind, the kind that survives on shared fatigue. The night before the hearing, Lena joined me on the porch. The air smelled of rain again. Are we doing the right thing? She asked. What do you mean? Dragging it into court. Maybe if we ignore him, he'll disappear. Maybe, I said. But ignoring Rod doesn't stop the smell. She leaned her head on my shoulder. Mom would know what to do. She does, I said. We're doing it. The street was quiet except for crickets and the distant hiss of traffic on US 1. I felt her breathing steady against my arm. For the first time in months, I thought maybe we'd survive this without breaking something sacred. Still, when I went to bed, I kept Marianne's letter on the nightstand. Her handwriting glowed faintly in the lamplight, a reminder and a warning. Don't let pride drive the car. The next day, the courthouse smelled of air conditioning and nerves. Judge Hollander was gray, dry-voiced, unimpressed by theater. Ethan sat across the aisle, eyes bloodshot, his lawyer whispering with the urgency of someone trying to contain a spill. When the clerk read the petition, the text, the threats, the cake, the invoice, the box, Hollander frowned once, then looked directly at Ethan. Mr. Pierce, would you like to explain this slice of cake delivered to the petitioner's home? Ethan shifted. It was a misunderstanding, a joke. Hollander sighed. A joke that traveled through the postal system and closed with a written threat. My patience has boundaries. He turned to me. Mr. Cole, anything further? I rose. My voice surprised even me, calm, unhurried. Only this, Your Honor. My daughter has endured enough performance for one lifetime. We ask only for distance and peace. He nodded. Granted. The gavel's tap was soft, merciful. Outside the courtroom, cameras waited, but Lena and I slipped through a side corridor I knew from old cases. The sunlight beyond the exit door was blinding, hot, forgetting. Is it over? She asked. Legally, I said. Emotionally, give it time. She smiled. I can live with that. That night, Alone again on the porch, I watched the neighbors' sprinklers arc across their lawn, catching moonlight like diamonds. Somewhere in the city, Ethan was learning what silence feels like when no one's forced to listen. I almost pitied him. Almost. Marianne's letter lay open on my lap. I whispered to it, "Pride or love? Tell me which one's winning." The wind didn't answer. Would you have chased justice through paperwork or let the world's noise fade? Would you believe, as I do, that mercy means nothing until the law has spoken? Or have I already gone too far? It has been 4 weeks since the hearing. The papers are filed, the signatures dry. Miami is itself again, humid, careless, loud. People have already forgotten Categate, moved on to new scandals with fresher frosting. But silence, when it finally comes, is not peace. It is echo. Every morning, I still wake at 6, make coffee, and walk the beach along Ocean Drive. The sand there is pale and fine, a texture that almost feels like forgiveness. The tourists stare at their phones, chasing light. I let the tide lick my shoes and think about the strange symmetry of all this. How a man can spend a lifetime avoiding confrontation, only to find redemption in the middle of one. Ethan has gone quiet. The court order keeps him 50 yards from Lena, 200 from the house. The reporter, Sandra Velasquez, sent me a link to her article, "The Stoic Father and the Viral Bride." She wrote it with care. She even quoted Marianne's line from the old wedding tape, "Only today, sweet girl." That detail broke me. The world applauded for a while. Then it stopped. They always stop. Now, life is smaller. Lena works remotely from my dining room, her laptop perpetually open among coffee mugs and half-read case files. She's doing contract research for a nonprofit, something to do with digital privacy. If you can't beat the internet, she says, teach it manners. I pretend to understand. Sometimes she gets interview requests, morning shows, podcasts, but she declines them all. I'm tired of being brave for strangers, she told me once. I didn't argue. Still, the story clings. Last week, an envelope arrived with no return address. Inside was a handwritten note. "Thank you for showing the world it's okay to walk away." Signed only, another daughter. Lena cried when she read it. I didn't. Not because I wasn't moved, because some tears at my age feel like trespassing on someone else's grief. I wish I could say I feel victorious. That would make a neat ending. But victories at 74 taste like salt water. They quench nothing. One evening, I found myself watching the old tape again, the one from the USB Marianne left. Lena spinning in her tiny princess dress, sword in hand, shouting, "Daddy's the bad guy." And Marianne laughing. Only today, she'd said. Only today. I paused the frame on her face. The grainy smile. The way she was already thinner than she wanted me to notice. Grief ages differently when preserved in pixels. That night I dreamed she was sitting on the porch beside me, hair unpinned, wind moving through her in that way dreams allow, as if the air itself recognized her. "You won," she said. "Did I?" She smiled the small, patient smile she used when I'd missed the point. "You remembered the rule." "Which one?" "The one you wrote in the ledger. Integrity before comfort." When I woke, the house was full of dawn and her perfume, or maybe memory pretending to be scent. Lena found me on the porch an hour later. "You look better," she said. "I saw your mother." She didn't flinch. Was she mad? "No," I said. "Just right, as usual." She sat beside me, wrapped in Marianne's sweater. The sky over Biscayne Bay was the color of old silver. "I've been thinking," she said, "about moving out." I nodded. "Where?" "Nowhere dramatic. A little apartment near Coconut Grove. I need my own quiet." "Of course you do." She hesitated. "Are you angry?" "No," I said. "Only older." We both laughed at that. Then she reached into her bag and handed me a small folder. "I talked to the hotel manager," she said. "He wanted to apologize. He also wanted to refund the deposits Ethan made with your card." Inside was a check, more than I expected. I stared at it. "You didn't have to." "I did," she said. "You've protected me enough. It's my turn." I folded the check once, carefully. "Keep it. Start your new place." She looked at me the way Marianne used to, seeing through politeness straight into pride. "I already signed the lease," she said. "This is yours. Sometimes love is stubbornness wearing its Sunday clothes. She moved out 2 days later. The house immediately grew enormous. I kept finding her things. A hair tie on the bathroom sink, a chipped mug, a notebook full of doodles she'd made while pretending to listen to me reading the newspaper aloud. I left them where they were, proof of habitation. The night after she left, I poured myself a glass of water, walked through the house, and stopped at the dining table where the blue ledger rested. I opened it. For storms. The clause on extraordinary circumstances stared back at me, already satisfied. Beneath it, I added a line in my neat, aging hand. Outcome, daughter safe. Enemy, irrelevant. Ledger closed. Then, for reasons I can't explain, I wrote another sentence beneath it. Cost, quiet. I closed the book, locked it back in the drawer, and sat listening to the hum of the refrigerator, the new rhythm of my life. The following week, Sandra's article went national. She sent me a printed copy, inscribed in blue ink. For the man who taught us silence can be a sword. I laughed at that. If only she knew how many times silence had been my shield instead. At the bottom of the article was a photo I didn't know she'd taken. Me and Lena walking out of the courthouse. Her head on my shoulder, my expression unreadable. The caption, after the gavel, Grace. I stared at that photo for a long time. Marianne would have hated the word grace. She said it sounded like something you had to earn. Then, one afternoon, a letter arrived. A plain white envelope, no postmark. Inside, a single sentence in familiar handwriting. I'm sorry for everything. I'm leaving Florida. Please tell her I mean it. No signature, but I knew. The handwriting was steady, almost sober. Ethan. I read it twice, then folded it and placed it in the blue ledger. Between outcome and cost. Lena didn't need to see it. Forgiveness, I've learned, isn't always a conversation. Sometimes it's a filing. So that's where we are now. The world has moved on. The house breathes quietly. I walk the beach most evenings. The same stretch where Marianne and I once planned our lives like a case we thought we could win. The tide still rises, still erases. Sometimes I see fathers with daughters, men younger, louder, carrying beach toys instead of regrets. I envy them, but only gently. They haven't yet learned how the heart keeps its own ledgers. When I return home, the porch light glows like an old friend. I pour a cup of tea, sit in the silence, and talk to the ghost that stayed polite enough to listen. Marianne, always first, then sometimes myself. And when I think of Ethan, the shadow that once called itself my son, I feel nothing sharper than pity. That's how I know it's over. Still, every victory leaves a bruise. Mine is called quiet. Would you have fought for justice or stopped once your child was safe? Did I win or merely outlast the noise? And if silence is peace, why does it still sound like thunder? Thank you for staying with me through this story until now. If you enjoyed it, consider subscribing and sharing it with your friends. So together, we can build a community. Thank you.